Day 3. Building a complex cluster. Today we will install a multi-node cluster using kubeadm and a helper project called KS Vagrant Multinode. So we'll start up by installing the multi-node cluster, and then we'll explore it to see the differences with a multi-node cluster over the Minikube one we installed earlier. Then we'll deploy some initial workloads to the cluster, things like an ingress controller, a Kubernetes dashboard, etc. Next we'll redeploy the first app we deployed in earlier days, but this time with an ingress resource, so we can see it through the ingress controller. And finally we'll finish up with some homework. Installing a multi-node cluster. So if we search for creating a single master cluster with kubeadm on the Kubernetes website, we'll be brought to this page. It gives you some detail about the purpose of kubeadm, how you can use it, its maturity level, the support timeframes for the versions of kubeadm and the versions of Kubernetes, and then it goes into the details about how to set it up. So there's some prereq information before you begin, and then the instructions themselves. So how to install kubeadm onto your hosts, and then how to initialize your master. And then once we've got a master, how we install a pod network, of which there's many different ones. There's ones like Flannel or Calico or Clanel. And if we keep scrolling down, then we get to how we join our nodes into the cluster, once we've created that master, of course. Then finally, how to tear it all down again. However, rather than use these instructions on the website, we're going to make our lives easier. We're going to use an open source project called KS Vagrant Multinode. And that's going to set up the machines for us. It's going to do that provisioning. And then it's going to use kubeadm to install the Kubernetes cluster. So let's take a look at the GitHub repo for that project. Okay, so if we scroll down a bit to look at the README, we can see that it's got the prereqs listed. Something we're going to need to install in a minute is Vagrant, but we already have VirtualBox from earlier. There's a set of hardware requirements there. They're really a minimum, and they're not recommended for this course. We need a bit more than that. And then there's a quick start. So if we were just using the standard defaults, we could just use this simple command, and that would set up our cluster for us. As I said though, we're going to have to do something a little bit against the defaults to have a bigger cluster. And if we keep scrolling down, we see that there's quite a lot of useful information on this README. It tells you how to use the makefile to get the status of the cluster, how to clean it up. You can even copy Docker images into the VMs so that they're pre-cached there. It speeds up startup time. Lots of useful information, but we're going to make use of these variables here so that we can customize our install. There's even a demo there. Okay, so first of all, let's install Vagrant. Okay, so if you go to the Vagrant website, vagrantup.com, and then you click on the download button, you'll be presented with the available downloads for the package types, such as for Debian, Windows, CentOS. What we're doing here is we're going to install with macOS. So just click on the link and the download will begin. Once it's downloaded, then just install it as you would a normal Mac binary and just follow the instructions. So let's go to the command prompt and clone the repo. Okay, so now we've got it, let's go ahead and install it. As described previously, we're going to customize it a little. So what we've done is we put some environment variables there before the make command, and they change the way it's going to install it. What we're saying is that rather than the default of 1 GB of memory for each node, we want to have 3. And rather than 1 CPU per node, we want to have 2. And rather than 2 nodes, we want to have 3. Now if your machine isn't up to this, then we can get away with having a smaller configuration. So we're still going to need 3 nodes, but we could get away with just having 2 GB per node. Now if you do this, then as the course progresses you might need to pull some of the workloads off. So let's go ahead and install our cluster. Okay, so that's going to take quite a while, but once it's complete, let's just have a look at the status of it. So we're going to have to use the variable node count equals 3 again, so that the make command knows that we've created 3 nodes. And then with the status target, we can have a look at our VirtualBox images and see if they're running. And indeed they are. Okay, so in this video, we've learned a little bit about kubeadm. We've seen the documentation for it on the Kubernetes website. And then we've used an open source project called KS Vagrant Multinode to install our cluster using kubeadm, but also do the provisioning of the machines. In the next video, we're going to explore the cluster that we just created.